I know how it sounds. Let me explain. My relationship with Miles used to be completely perfect. The day after our wedding, he drove us to his secluded cabin on the Pacific Coast Highway. Cabin is what he called it. I would have called it a mansion, a sleek little hideaway overlooking the ocean. The air was damp and cool, and we built a fire to chase away the chill. Outside, the waves crashed onto the rocks below. The cabin was truly the perfect romantic getaway, secluded and scenic. He poured me a glass of red wine and we sat around the crackling logs late into the night. We'd had a picture-perfect whirlwind romance. I was working on the set of a new TV show as a wardrobe assistant. He was the charming actor playing a minor role. I worked grueling hours for low pay. He made the big bucks. It was all so unexpected when he took an interest in me. But it wasn't like I was unattractive. No, everyone agreed we made a lovely couple. Even my parents, whom he charmed immediately with his down-to-earth sensibilities. Our wedding was the most incredible day. All of my childhood expectations were exceeded. The custom wedding dress, the $10,000 cake, the natural setting, with 200 of my closest friends and relatives. The endlessly blue, cloudless sky. My friends all said the pictures would be gorgeous, that we were a perfect couple, that the day was something out of a fairy tale. That was the happiest day of my life. I had everything I ever wanted. Miles was the whole package, smart, handsome, rich. And he was finally mine, or so I thought. Little did I know that after the wedding the happiness would fade. I think he thought I wouldn't notice, wouldn't say anything, wouldn't complain. That is, when I finally noticed he was cheating, running around with other women, which is what he's doing right now. Miles thinks the house is empty, but I'm here. I never leave. I can hear them up there. Footsteps across the floor, a muted giggle. That would be his new girlfriend, I presume. She's probably wowed by this place like I was. And Miles himself, of course. But there's a sight I'd like to show her that's more impressive than the ocean view. It's me, all chopped up in the downstairs freezer. You see, Miles didn't like that I figured out his little secret. He liked it less that I confronted him about it. And when I tried to pack my bags and slip out one evening, he cornered me in the garage. He'd been watching me on the security cameras all along. I hadn't even realized they were there. Miles thought he was done with me. He'd solved his problem, at least temporarily. Except, I'm still here. It's hard to haunt when you're wrapped up in plastic. But so far, I've successfully scared 2 other women away from this place before anything bad happened to them. Turns out whispering, "Get out," into someone's ear as they lay by the pool is pretty freaky. Freaky enough to make them leave. I want to warn the girl upstairs too. She's not safe. Because he's not done. I get the feeling I wasn't the first kill. It seemed too natural, too practiced. That knife just slid in too easily for it to be impulse. I think there might be more of us down here. Unfortunately, I only have finite energy left in my ghost form. Speaking, even whispering, takes a lot. It's taking all the energy I have left to haunt the computer Miles keeps down here, sliding along the passive Ethernet cables into the wide world of the internet, where I've come to plead for help. So please, is there anyone out who could come save her? I'm a no-sleep addict. Especially these days, with nothing else to fill my time, I spend endless hours scouring new, and then the archives, for stories that I haven't yet read. My favorite are rules stories. You probably know the kind. I'm a night shift guard at an abandoned mall, and someone left me a strange list of rules. The OP never takes the rules seriously at first. Inevitably, something creepy happens, and they panic and break one. I always thought that it would be so simple for me to follow the rules by just keeping a clear head. My chance to prove myself came unexpectedly. Hey, you still looking for a job? Tony, my roommate, asked me over dinner one night. Uncle Mike is looking for an overnight warehouse manager. I hurried to chew and swallow a huge mouthful of spaghetti. I don't have any management experience, I said. Tony waved his fork dismissively. The title's just for show. All you'd be doing is keeping an eye on the warehouse. Make sure no one breaks in and stuff. What's the pay? $25 an hour. I choked on a piece of onion. As I took a gulp of water, massaging my throat, it occurred to me that Tony was doing me a favor. We'd gotten close over 2 years of living together, and he knew that I needed money in a bad way. Where do I sign up? I joked. The next day, an Uber dropped me off at 9 p.m. sharp at the warehouse address. The warehouse was an ugly concrete building nestled between a junkyard and a shuttered dentist's office. I knew it was a dentist's office because of the rotted wood sign over the door, which read, "Happy Teeth," next to a chipped picture of a cartoon emoji grinning widely with a full set of realistic human teeth. I pulled open the warehouse's thick metal door and stepped inside. I found myself in a huge, mostly empty room, illuminated by strips of flickering fluorescent lights. A few wooden crates were stacked haphazardly against the far wall, next to another metal door. To my left was a small closet whose door was slightly ajar. To my right, a wooden desk with a chair behind it. On the desk lay a silvery key and a sheet of printer paper. My heart began to beat faster as I picked up the paper and read the following in large black print: "Rules. Lock the door behind you when you enter the building, and again when you leave. Do not open the door for anyone. If they are meant to be here, they will have a key. Do not go into the back room, especially if you hear voices coming from it. Ignore any unusual smells. Never open the crates. If they leak, there is a mop in the janitor's closet. If you see a man in a blue and white striped suit, be polite to him, but do not look at his face. Do not call the police. They are not on your side. Do not talk to anyone who looks like a police officer. They are not on your side." Was this a prank? I tried to recall if I'd mentioned my obsession with rules stories to Tony before. After a moment, I decided that, prank or not, I'd do what I'd wished so many times the OPs of those stories would do. Keep a clear head. Follow the rules. I took the key and locked the heavy metal door behind me. Then I peeked into the closet, discovering that the cramped space doubled as both a janitor's closet and a restroom, containing a urinal, sink, mop, and bucket. Finally, I sat down at the desk, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling Reddit. I was proud of myself for having avoided the obvious trap. If I had gone to scope out the back room, no doubt something would have enticed me to open the door. No, better to stay right here. Several hours of doom-scrolling later, I was sitting in my chair, half dozing, when a rattling sound startled me awake. I checked my phone, 1 a.m. I heard the rattling again, coming from the front door. Someone was trying the door handle. I held my breath, staring at the jiggling handle. It occurred to me that there were no windows in the entire warehouse. No one could see in, and I couldn't see out. After a few seconds, the door handle stilled. Boom! The entire door shook, as if someone or something had struck it with tremendous force. My heart jackhammering in my throat, I stood up and slowly backed away. Boom! 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 My back hit something cold. I was pressed against the back wall. As if a switch had flipped, everything fell still and quiet again. Under my hand, I felt the rugged metal of the door to the back room. Had the sole purpose of the assault by the entity outside been to drive me toward this room? In the sudden silence, I heard something through the wall. It was faint, but high-pitched, nibbling just at the edges of my hearing, swelling in volume before dying away again, over and over in an irregular pattern. It sounded like a crying baby. I fled back to my desk, my mind whirring. Could there really be a child trapped back there? Should I call the cops? At that last thought, I snapped back to my senses. My eyes went to the printout on my desk. Do not call the police. I shook my head, smiling at the implausibility of the scenario. A baby, in the back room of an industrial warehouse? I needed to keep my wits about me. Nothing else strange happened for the rest of the night. I used part of my first paycheck to buy a pair of noise-canceling headphones and showed up for my second shift with them already over my ears, the noise cancellation on max. I froze as I stepped through the warehouse door. The air smelled wrong. It was coppery, like an old penny, with an unpleasant undertone that reminded me of a sewer leak, a mix of filth and decay. Coughing, I turned and locked the door. As I turned back around, something caught my eye. The crates at the back of the warehouse were sitting in what looked like a pool of tar. Swallowing down a vague feeling of unease, I went to fetch the mop. The tar-colored substance, when I mopped it up, was gloopy like day-old gravy. The coppery smell floated around me, so strong that it almost felt like a physical thing, a mist that saturated my nostrils, my clothes, my lungs with every shallow breath I drew. Something touched the back of my head, and my headphones slid off. I spun around, sloshing dirty water everywhere. A man stood a few feet away with my headphones in his hand. He wore a gaudy suit, with cream white and baby blue stripes. A gold bow tie sat crooked against a stiff white collar, and his face. I dropped my gaze to the floor, trying to forget my brief impression of his glittering eyes and pale lips. His voice was soft and thin. "Are you the new overnight manager?" he asked. Yes, sir," I forced out. "No headphones," he said. "Stay alert." I bobbed my head like a fool while staring intently at his shiny brown shoes. "Keep up the good work," he said. The shoes shifted, and his clicking footsteps crossed the room, followed by the sound of the front door unlocking. Once I heard the door lock slide back into place, I dared to look up. The warehouse was empty. I quickly finished mopping up the mess by the crates. My headphones were sitting on my desk. I sank into my chair, staring at the round black pads that soaked up the dim light. Had the man come in from outside? Or had he been in the back room? My imagination, running wild, conjured a vision of him standing unnaturally still in the dark, on the other side of the wall. Why had he been there? How long had he been waiting? What if he wasn't the only one? I couldn't calm down. I played on my phone, paced the floor, tried to nap, but no matter what I did, it felt like 1,000 glittering eyes were boring into my back. I needed to see what was in the back room. I read and reread the rules. Do not go into the back room, especially if you hear voices coming from it. I wouldn't go in, I reasoned. I'd listen for voices, then open the door and take a peek. Just a peek, to make sure I was alone. I apprehensively approached the back door, noting how solid it looked, how thick the hinges were. I pressed my ear to the cool metal and closed my eyes. I was greeted by silence, broken only by my shaky breathing. Before I could lose my nerve, I yanked the door open. On the other side was a completely bare concrete room, lit by a naked light bulb dangling from the ceiling. I stared and stared, embarrassment and relief alternately washing over me in waves. Boom! I whipped around. Boom! The front door shook with the force of an unseen impact. "Police!" a voice shouted from outside. Boom! My eyes dipped to the sheet of rules. "They are not on your side. Police, open up." Boom! The inked words swam in my vision. "Do not talk to anyone who looks like a police officer. They are not on your side." My vision exploded with golden stars. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital bed and being informed by a stern-faced policewoman that I was under arrest. I was too out of it at the time to follow much of what she said, but I pieced the facts together over the course of my ensuing trial. I had been unwittingly recruited by a criminal organization. The police had been after the big boss, the man in the blue and white suit, when they blew the door to the warehouse with me inside. One of the jury members threw up at the photos of what was found in those crates. No one believed my protestations of innocence. I couldn't explain why I had ignored the crying, mopped up the blood, why I couldn't describe the appearance of the man in the suit despite having been close enough to touch him. I got 40 years without parole. My life is over, but let me leave you with this warning in case I might save yours. If you find a strange set of rules, don't follow them. I don't believe in the supernatural. Never have, never will. But everything the last few days has me questioning everything. I haven't slept, I haven't eaten, I haven't left my house. Yet I fear she will get me anyway. Let me start at the beginning. I was driving home from a friend's party 3 days ago. I'd stayed late and it was already dark out. And then something caught my eye. On the 3rd floor of an old Victorian house, the light was on. In the window I saw a shape, the shape of a woman hanging upside down. It was as if her feet were somehow tied to the ceiling, and she was hanging upside down in midair. Her arms somehow hung naturally at her sides, defying gravity. But her hair hung straight down from her head, ending in little wispy threads. No detail, just a silhouette. As soon as I recognized it, I was already past the house. So I turned around and drove past it again. This time, I only saw some rumpled curtains with tassels and a lamp in the window, which, maybe if you squinted real hard, could look like a woman hanging upside down. I shook my head and kept driving home. I'd had a lot of pareidolia jump scares like this. Pareidolia is our brain's tendency to see faces and shapes in randomness, like how we see clouds that look like animals, or knots of wood that look like faces. Sometimes I think I have an overactive sense of pareidolia. For example, years ago, when I got bangs cut for the first time, I started seeing shadow people. It took me an embarrassingly long time to realize the shadow people was hair falling into my eyes, that my brain was interpreting as some sort of demon or spirit. So I didn't give the upside-down woman much thought, until I saw her again. I was on the subway into work. Lights caught my eye, out the window, as another subway passed us in the opposite direction. I looked up, and there she was. The silhouette of a woman, hanging upside down in the passing subway car, pressed against the window, blurred by the speed of the train. I only saw her for a split second, and then she was gone, as the train rattled past us. What the fuck? I must have just seen, like, a black jacket draped over a seat or something, right? My heart began to pound. I stared out the window for the rest of my commute. But all the other passing subways were fine, filled with commuters staring at their phones. When I got out at the station, my legs were so weak, I thought I might collapse, but I forced myself to work. I didn't see anything strange on the way back from work either. When I got home, I tried to distract myself, binging the nastiest stuff on HBO and plowing through an entire bag of chips. Then, I finally went to sleep. Only to wake up with a start at 3:03 a.m. I was covered in a film of cold sweat. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't remember any dream. Usually when I woke up like this, the vestiges of some nightmare were still in my head. This time, there was nothing. I rolled over, pulling the covers up to my chin, and closed my eyes. Wait. There was something in the darkness of my room that didn't look quite right. I opened my eyes and looked around the room, my heart hammering. The dark shapes of my nightstand, my bookshelves, came into focus. Everything was where it should be, except for the light. It was too dark in here. I rolled back over towards my window and realized that the usual annoying light from the street lamp below was not shining through the curtains. I got out of bed, slowly, and made my way to the window. I pulled back the curtains. My knees buckled underneath me. She was hanging from the roof. Her feet were tied to the awning of the roof, right in front of my window. Her arms hung loosely from her shoulders. Her hair hung straight down, waving gently in the breeze. Actually, her entire body was waving gently in the breeze. I grabbed the curtains and pulled them shut. I ran over to the light. Then I tiptoed back to the window and peeked out a tiny slit between the curtains. No, she was gone. I saw the street lamp, the night sky, dotted with stars. The next morning, I tried to tell myself it was a dream. I'd had a few weird moments in my life. In the twilight between dreaming and wake, sleep is a weird, hallucinogenic continuum, and who was to say I hadn't imagined the woman out my window? Deep down, I knew that wasn't true, but it was a pretty little lie. I made my way to work shaken. I didn't look up at passing subway cars. I drank about 3 cups of coffee. Jeff, ever the charmer, told me I looked super tired, and Tina asked me if I was sick. I didn't tell them what happened. They wouldn't believe me. When I got home, I started searching online for what I'd seen. I found myself scouring urban legend forums and even old posts here on No Sleep, the kinds of places I only visited briefly when I saw the shadow people or when I was looking for a laugh. Now, I wasn't laughing. I was desperately searching for an answer to whatever this was. And then, finally, I found it. Someone claimed their friend had seen the upside-down woman and had died 4 days later. Stay away from windows, they warned. It can only manifest in windows. They also remarked that their friend had at first seen the woman through 2 layers of glass, like through a car window, into the window of a home, and then later, through only 1 window, like it was getting closer. Some science-y person had replied, asking all kinds of ridiculous questions, like if plastic counts or any transparent material, and they replied, there has to be a pane of glass or glass-like material in front of the person. They did not explain glass-like any further. There was no way to avoid windows, unless I lived in the basement, so I moved food, water, and clothing down there while half closing my eyes. I told my boss I was sick. Oh yeah, Tina told me you looked sick. Hope it's not COVID. It took me a long time, but then I was settled in. For how long I didn't know. I didn't know if it was even possible to wait out the upside-down woman, and I didn't even know if I actually believed in her existence in the first place. That was about to change. I decided to get some reading done to get my mind off things. I grabbed my book and, without thinking, grabbed my reading glasses. As soon as I put them on, I screamed. She was hanging from the basement ceiling, hanging in the corner, a void of darkness, hair nearly trailing to the floor. And then this time, she moved. In jerky, incredibly fast motions, she broke free from the ceiling and scrambled towards me. I ripped the glasses off my face, but not before pain exploded in my arm. When I looked down, there were 4 deep scratch marks on my forearm, dripping blood. That leaves me here. I am sitting in my basement, away from all windows and glass, on the 3rd day. According to the guy on the internet, his friend was killed the 4th day. I don't know what will happen after 4 days. If that means I've waited her out, and she'll move on to another target, or if she'll kill me anyway, glass or not. If you don't hear from me in 24 hours, assume the worst.